Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the farewell party to the Yegerlehners. And in order for us to have somebody to recognize, I'm going to have to go down and get them. So I'm going to bring up to the platform Dr. Yegerlehner, Gladys Yegerlehner, and Mark Yegerlehner. And let's everybody give them a big hand as they come up. Now, I want the Yegerlehners to know that we are not having this celebration because they are leaving the town, but because you have had the privilege and the pleasure of having them with you for the last 26 years. In order to expedite this thing, it may take a little time. We've had some refusals, people that weren't going to be able to be here and some that are here, but we're going to roll back the corridors of time to the year 1904. When Doc was born in Clay County, Indiana. He went to the Clay City Public Schools and graduated in 1922. Is that right, Doc? I wasn't sure of that. I guessed it. I often wondered what kind of a pupil he was, both in grades and in deportment. Who from around here could have known him better during his early school days? Now, she's supposed to come on.
Roscoe, do you remember reminding me just a few days ago that we were kids together? You very kindly forgot that I was one of the big kids and you were one of the little kids who had to be looked after when our families met at different farms in the neighborhood at thrashing time.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's have Mary Porteous come out on the stage now. Mary Porteous was his English teacher down at Clay, I believe it was Clay City. Is that right? Did you try to come over here? Now you can make your speech right here.
Oh, fine. I told Al it's much easier to speak if you have something in front of you. You started school, a one-room country school, I think. Must have been 5, 6 years old. And his first teacher was a Miss Brown, who was my sister. She made quite a lasting impression on him and he made quite a lasting impression upon her because of his wide, toothless grin and the black curls. Still has a few. He had another Miss Brown along the way in grade school yet. And then he entered Clay City High School. Well, I had finished Clay City High School by that time, and also college. Came right back to the same school to teach my first year. And who was there in one of my English classes but Roscoe Yegerlehner? He was a sophomore. And you know, I've often wondered, Art, if that might be the reason why druggists don't seem to have any trouble reading his prescriptions. Roscoe was a very brilliant student, and although he enjoyed all the funny things and the mischievous things that happened, he never started them. He may have helped finish a few. Well, I left Clay City then. I hadn't heard from Roscoe for years. And I married, came and settled north of Robb on a farm. And several years afterwards, we heard there was going to be a new doctor in Kentland. Of course, we asked who. Well, you know, no one could tell me. They could neither pronounce it nor spell it. But they did get the word Roscoe and something about the last name, and he was from Lafayette. I said, "You mean Roscoe Yegerlehner?" "Oh, yes, that's the person." Well, I said, "That kid's not from Lafayette. He's from Clay City." So I immediately started making some inquiries, and I found out he wasn't a kid at all anymore. He had graduated from college. I think you'd taught school about 10 years, hadn't you, Doctor? 9. And along that line, he had received a master's degree and also a wife and 2 small boys. So he didn't seem to be satisfied. They said he wasn't getting where he wanted to go. So with the consent and the help of a very brave wife, he quit and started medicine school. Well, we were quite pleased to know he was coming, because anyone with that kind of background who had done his medical work as an adult would certainly make a good doctor, and Kentland needed one. We have a son who had an accident immediately, and I think he was doctor's first patient. Well, he was one of these kids who was allergic to everything, especially tetanus shots. But he got his tetanus shot anyway. And I think Doctor remembers how busy he was for several hours after that. Anyway, he has been our doctor from then on.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mary Porteous. Now then, there's no one that's any closer than your own brother and sister. I'm going to call on Ruth Muchler to tell what she knows about you. Where is Ruth Muchler?
Oh, I am his sister, but he always introduces me as his mother. He does that very quickly because he knows I'm apt to say, "No, I'm his sister," and so many people take us for twins, so he very quickly
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's have Ruth Muchler out here. Dr. Yegerlehner's sister. Come here and say a few words. We'd like to hear from you.
Well, I'm very happy to be here, and they didn't let me finish out there. I'm only 4 years older than he is, and but he just now said, "Tell him you're 10," and I said, "I won't do it. I'm only 4." I had 6 brothers. I'm very proud of them all. I came in the middle, so people say you're spoiled, but I don't. I rather think I'm not, but maybe I am.
Thank you very much. Now, I think that there's be an opportunity to Floyd Yegerlehner to enlighten us a little bit about his brother. Floyd Yegerlehner.
As you can probably see in a little bit, I will probably be represented as the healthy one, and he will be the scrawny one.
Come on out, Floyd. Floyd and Mrs. Yegerlehner.
I've long sought this opportunity. You know, it would seem that after 45 years, a person should be able to tell a secret that's been long down in his heart, and I think this is the opportunity that I'll choose today. You know, it seems as if about, I guess it must be about 45 years ago, I think it was on a Sunday afternoon such as this, sort of a cloudy, foggy afternoon. And the family had an old rifle that didn't shoot straight. Well, he and my next oldest brother, Raymond, had passed away when he was younger. And a neighbor kid decided that they would go out exploring and exploiting that afternoon, I guess, and they decided that they'd go out and shoot this rifle. Well, of course, everybody knew that it didn't shoot straight, so it didn't make any difference what you were shooting at. You weren't going to hit it anyhow. So the neighbors' turkeys had come across the field, and they were down in the field, a little bit low like this off to the left, and they pulled this rifle out and just aimed it aimlessly anywhere they'd shoot, and pretty soon it happened. They killed Belle Hyatt's turkey gobbler. And you know, to this day, I never will forget that. You know, I was sworn to secrecy. Now, don't you ever tell Mom whatever happened to Belle Hyatt's turkey. Well, I could take you to the spot today where they buried that turkey gobbler. And I'll assure you that there was a pile of leaves and a pile of brush over that turkey gobbler that nobody could have ever found him. The best FBI agents would have never discovered it. So after this, I think after 45 years, I should be deserved to tell that story on it.
Floyd told me another story, but I can't tell it. I know it'd embarrass him, so we won't try it at all. Well, Doc didn't go into medicine first off. He entered Indiana State Normal, graduated with, I think it was State Normal at that time, wasn't it, Doc? Graduated with an A.B. degree, taught a few years, and then took his master's degree at Indiana University. While a teacher who would know more about him than a fellow that could not be here today. Now, we had a man by the name of Wayne Watson. I think the Doc that taught with you, where was it, at Clay City? And Wayne sends his regrets and said that he's awfully sorry that he couldn't be here. So we'll have to pass that up. We were going to get some dope on him when he was in the school business. And having been in the school business myself, I know a little something about that, too. Then he decided to enter medical school at Indiana University. He graduated and took his internship at St. Elizabeth Hospital at Lafayette. Now, I have a telegram I would like to read from some of his associates at Lafayette, and also, well, we'll have some others, too, that there. This telegram: "It is our pleasure to join with your many friends and patients in the tribute honoring you for your many years of devoted service to the people of the Kentland community. We know that it has been a gratifying experience. It has been our privilege to have worked closely with you during this period of time, and we have only the deepest respect for the dedication and manner in which you have presented the medical profession. You and your wife have our best wishes for good health and much happiness in the years ahead. Cordially, Dr. Richard Gary, Dr. Donald Fields, Dr. H.S. Johnson, Dr. Richard C. McPherson." Doc, we'll give you that. I have a letter from Ari Cole, Dr. Cole from Lafayette. "I am very sorry, but I have to attend a golden wedding at 3 p.m. next Sunday. I hate awfully I cannot come. Thanks for inviting me. Sincerely, Ari Cole." I have one from Richard Chance from Remington. "Thank you for your invitation to the party for Dr. Yegerlehner. I regret that it will be impossible for me to attend." I have a letter also from Dr. Roberts of Watseka. "Thank you for your invitation to the farewell party for Dr. Yegerlehner. Unfortunately, I will be out of town that day. I do want to add this comment, that over the past 30 years, I have found him to be a fine gentleman and a wonderful doctor and a credit to both the medical profession and the human race. My best wishes to him and his family. Very truly yours, J.M. Roberts, Dr. J.M. Roberts. There are several other letters. I better just as well get these off of my mind now while I'm thinking about them. You had a letter, Doctor, from Glass from Des Moines, Iowa. Who's that? Oh, your daughter? Romaine? Thank you so much for your kind invitation to attend the celebration in Kentland honoring Uncle Jake. What do you think of that? As I'm sure you know, we would like very much to attend. However, the distance involved over just a weekend really makes it impossible. Our best wishes to all of you for a very happy celebration. Sincerely, Romaine Glass. Uncle Jake, I'll give that to you when we get through here. I have a letter from Harry T. Haver, who is at the Hendricks County Hospital at Danville, Indiana now, and was administrator out here at the George Ade Hospital. Thanks very much for your invitation to attend the party you are planning for Dr. Yegerlehner. Sally and I are sorry, however, that we cannot make the trip to Kentland due to a prior commitment we will not be able to break. We were happy to be included in the party at the hospital and enjoyed it very much. I'm sure your party for Dr. Yegerlehner will be just as enjoyable. Sincerely, Harry T. Haber, Jr. I think that's about it. No, Doc, there was a few. There's one from Clarence Yegerlehner. That's your brother from Clay City. And Ralph Yegerlehner. That's your brother? How many more you got? Have you?
I have 6 brothers.
6 brothers? Well, here, you can have the whole works. I don't want. All right. Let's see. I would like very much now. Well, what did I do with that one? Dr. McFadden, where are you? Doctor, will you and your wife please come up on the stage? I'd like to introduce you to from Lafayette. We'd like to have Dr. McFadden and his wife up here. Let's give them a little hand for coming up here. And we'd be very happy to hear from you, Doctor.
I am not a very funny person, so I don't believe I can tell any funny stories about Dr. Yegerlehner. As a matter of fact, he and I have had some very thoughtful and some very serious experiences because we sort of work as a doctor's doctor, and when he gets a problem, it's been our pleasure to work with him. And I can only say that this has been a real pleasure, and I can't do anything but echo the sentiments that you have heard expressing his concern for his patients. And I think that you people have been real fortunate, and not only has he been an outstanding citizen in every respect, but the profession generally has a wonderful regard for him. The only thing about this for which I'm happy is that the doctor and his family are moving to Lafayette.
Well, I've heard of mixed up kids in my life, but I never heard of it any more than he's going to Purdue. He graduated at Indiana University, and he graduated at Indiana State. Now, where is his loyalty? I don't know where it will be. Then, after he graduated from the university and spent a year of internship, he decided to hang out his shingle at Kentland. And the next voice is a young lady who worked in his office.
Yes, I was 18 years old, gone through high school to be a secretary, and what did I do but end up in a doctor's office?
Here's Doris Marvin.
In the summer of 1939, Dr. Yegerlehner, his wife, John and Mark, moved to Kentland. He needed an office girl, and I needed a job, so we began. First office was located where Tony's shoe shop is now. Business was kind of slow at first, as there were 3 other doctors in town. He spent most of the days talking to medical salesmen, Art Kenny, Ed Bars, and I worked all the crossword puzzles and answered the phone, mostly calls from Gladys with her grocery list. Little by little, business picked up. Soon he was making house calls day and night, worked Sunday mornings, spent a great deal of time driving to the Lafayette hospitals with his patients. After a year or so, I moved to Lafayette to work in an insurance agency. He was probably relieved, as I didn't make a very good nurse. However, I later returned, and with my 4 children, he has taken care of us throughout all the years that we've been in Kentland. And I think I've been repaid many, many times.
It makes me think of a story that they tell on Doc, that he had a letter from one of his patients, and he says, "Dear doctor, as you know, I have been deaf for 10 years, but after taking 8 bottles of your wonderful compound, I heard from my brother in Nebraska." Then he decided to hang up his shingle. You served your time in the war. Now that Doc entered the service in 1942. I ran into a friend of his that told me about one time he wrote him a letter. This friend of his was Hickey Reinhardt, and Hickey was stationed at Guadalcanal. And Doc was stationed at Russell Island? And Hickey wrote him a letter. And by the time Doc got the letter, the inspector had cut out the whole thing, and it said, "Dear Doc, sincerely, Hickey." And Doc wrote Hickey back a letter, and he said, Dear Hickey, I don't know what you said, but then it was all right with me. So, do you remember getting that letter? Busy as you were, there were times for community responsibilities.
You were elected to the school board.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Nicholson, a former principal and coach at the high school.
Well, we're certainly happy to have Dr. Yegerlehner at Purdue. As you probably have been reading, due to the good success of Coach Mollenkoff, some of his assistants have been leaving the staff. And we can recall when Mark was on the football team that Doctor was a pretty good assistant coach, and we think he'll fill in very nice in case we can't find a replacement. Well, I was on the faculty when Dr. Yegerlehner was appointed to the school board. And you know, all teachers have some sort of intrepidations and these kinds of things, notions. And some of us even subscribe to what Mark Twain once said, that God created idiots. That was for practice. Then he made school board members. I've been wanting to say that for a long time. But I think my 2 concerns actually was that those were kind of hard-pressed days financially, you know. And we knew that as busy as Dr. Yegerlehner was, sometimes he might be called out and not hit those school board meetings to sign the checks for us the next day. We were really concerned about that. But the other thing that really bothered us was whether he was going to be able to get us out of business. We felt that he had kind of, as I looked through a scrapbook back here, he had quite a corner on the delivery of youngsters. And you know, we're in the business of producing high-quality students, and we didn't know how many he was going to let us come into our doors, whether he was going to form a gatekeeping situation there. But in all seriousness, Dr. Yegerlehner, with my association with him, has certainly demonstrated, as all doctors, that he has a great humanitarian aspect. I'm sure that he has practiced these many years with the population from 0 to 90 plus years. But my association has been when he worked so well with the youth. And I know I could cite many specific cases where he's had deep-seated concerns for education, recreational opportunities for all of the people in the Kentland area. It, of course, is now my pleasure to be associated with him. As a matter of fact, Dorothy and I can sit down at the table and have a cup of coffee and look out and wave to he and Gladys across, because we can share our backyards almost. We're real fortunate in this way. You know, Dr. Schweitzer once said, "One thing I know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who have sought and found how to serve." And I'm sure that Dr. Yegerlehner falls in this category. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I knew I'd pull a faux pas. I didn't introduce Dr. Francis Kinney from Hammond. Dr. Kinney, will you please stand up, and would you like to come up? You may. We'd be delighted. And also Dr. Fred Logan, our local dentist. Fred, would you like to say a few words? We'd be happy to have it. You've already told him, huh? Thank you, Doctor. Art, have I missed anybody? Dr. Brady? Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Brady. Come on up here. Come up here. Well, thank you. Give him a good hand. Well, everyone has neighbors and friends. And I think that the fact that Doc got along so well here, that he picked out some pretty good neighbors. We have one here that's going to say a few words for us.
Oh, sure, I'll go. Tell Gladys I'll be right over and get that furnace started again.
All right, Russell Zell, who is was a neighbor of Doc's for many years.
It was almost a year after I came to Kentland that I met Dr. Yegerlehner, but I met his wife in the first winter we lived here, and I already gave you the cue of the most common message that we were to give. We still have an old-fashioned furnace, and it doesn't have a pin on the stoker, but they had one of these pins that has a shearing pin, and if the stoker coal had any foreign material in it, why, we got a pin sheared, and I'd go over and get the furnace started again. And that was the most usual trip over to the Yegerlehner home. Now, the first time I met Doc, I remember that they had a black car, and they had some kind of a gadget on each side of the garage door, and it wasn't wide enough for everybody to drive through, and Doc would back off, and he'd look at kind of a scratch about like a 20-penny nail scratched real hard in that fender, just at the same height as that angle iron, you know, on the door, you know, and he says, "Ma's been driving again." Now, each one of us could stand here a long time, but I have two things, I think. Oh, I want to say one more thing about Gladys. I'm supposed to be an agriculturist and a horticulturist. She has the greenest thumb of anybody I ever knew. She can take any kind of a twig or any kind of a root that's been dug up and put a little dirt on it and nourish it and nurture it, and it'll grow. She proved that to me many times. Now, I could talk about Doc's carpentry. I could talk about how he is a close inspector. He told me things about my house I never saw before. But Doc Yegerlehner wrote a letter to one of our daughters when she was 10 years old, and this told us an awful lot about him. Bear in mind now, we hadn't even met him yet. David was a few months old, and we had a 10-year-old girl. And this 10-year-old girl naturally wanted to carry that little boy. And the long and the short of it is, she slipped and accidentally fell with David. And after some anxious days, things seemed to be getting along pretty well. And after he cracked his femur, I think you call it. Anyhow, it was a rather serious little accident. But from the South Pacific came a letter to a 10-year-old girl assuring her that these things happen sometimes and that everything would be all right. Now, what more could I tell you about a man than to tell you about a letter of that kind? We'll never forget that letter. Now, there's one other thing I want to say. Maybe he'd have said this to anyone, but as a neighbor he said it to me. Said it to me in his office and in a professional situation. But this is the real measure of this man, in my opinion, as a professional as well as a neighbor. He said to me one day, "All I'm really doing is to helping the Almighty with His plans, and just doing what I can to help the plan of the Almighty come out the way He planned it." Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Your advice and assistance is needed in places the rest of us might never realize.
Doctor, assume for the purpose of this long hypothetical question, and remembering that you are under oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, that a young male comes into your office who can run the 100-yard dash in 3 seconds, jump 15 feet straight up in the air. He is 8 feet 4 inches tall. He has a high school diploma in one hand and a basketball in the other. Now, can you diagnose with a reasonable degree of medical certainty just which university this young man should attend?
Ladies and gentlemen, Judge Newell Lamb of the Circuit Court.
Dr. Yegerlehner and his fine family, my purpose this afternoon is not so much to reminisce as to tender you the heartfelt thanks of the Newton County Bar Association for the services that you render to our profession and have done this for so many years. Very few people realize, I am sure, how many hours a medical doctor has to spend giving expert testimony in the courtroom. Dr. Yegerlehner has always been willing to do this. He has been of invaluable assistance to the Newton Circuit Court. Our association with him in the mental health department has been most rewarding. We have never called upon him that he didn't respond, and graciously, and I hope vice versa. So on behalf of the citizens of this county, the Bar Association of this county, the Bar Association of the state of Indiana, and all of the citizens of Northwest Indiana that you so well served in court, we thank you very, very much.
Well, now to add a little humor to the situation, we have some people who have very weird tastes.
Every good piece of candy we got at the office was ruined by you dumping in your favorite candy, Whorehound. So Edna and I are giving you a separate container for your Whorehound plus a supply of your favorite candy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Edna and Arvella. Right.
The full one was too heavy for us. They said it weighed 50 pounds. He can pick that up at Kenny's drugstore later.
Arvella, would you like to see?
I've worked with Doctor for 21 years, and I think I have a lot of things to tell, but some of them aren't the best things to tell. He does speak a very fluent French.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think I should have mentioned the fact that Dr. Hensley, who is taking the place of Dr. Yegerlehner in the community here, wanted to express his regrets that he couldn't be here. He went home over the weekend. He's having little difficulties between Bloomington and Kentland, and we tried to get him for the luncheon today, or for the dinner today at the Methodist Church, and then for the occasion this afternoon. But he expressed his regrets that he wasn't able to be here. He's very sorry. Well, now then, a group you helped organize and sometimes deserted at a half-eaten meal. First,
we, the remaining charter members of the Rotary, want to give you your button.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Carl Funk. Carl Funk of the Funk Seed Corn Concern. I'll give him a little boost there. Carl, you can say it up here better.
Well, Dr. Yegerlehner has been a pleasure over these many years to have you a member of the club and one of those who have helped organize and started this club. Our Kentland Rotary Club was organized in 1940, and since that time, Doc has been a very faithful and one of our very fine members. About the only time he ever missed is when maybe a new baby was born, or due to some his medical service, he had to leave. But we're certainly going to miss Dr. Yegerlehner in our Kentland Rotary Club. Here is a chartered member pin that we're presenting to Doc Yegerlehner.
Well, you know, it's the doctor's duty to deliver babies, if he's that type of a doctor. And being a general practitioner, doctor has produced, no, wait a minute, has delivered around 1,500 babies in this community.
There is visual evidence that you haven't been sitting around twiddling your thumbs, Doc.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dorothy Parr, who is going to present Doc with us in the case.
In this scrapbook, we have the pictures of 501 of the babies that Doc has delivered. And this is not completed. If you haven't turned in your pictures, we'll keep on adding pages to this scrapbook as long as you bring us pictures. You know, Doc, we thought after you had delivered 1,500 babies, you probably would think that all babies looked alike. But we, as proud parents, wanted to show you that all babies really do not look alike, and we feel that we have some especially good-looking ones in this county. We also have added, beside the baby pictures, the pictures of the youngsters as they look today. And we are sure that you will decide we have some nice-looking specimens of the human race here in this community. We hope that as you leaf through this book, you will be reminded of special incidences, milestone events, humorous and unusual happenings connected with the families of these youngsters and with the other people in this community. I think one of the women that sent in one of the pictures spoke for all of us very well when she said, I am happy to send these pictures for Doc's scrapbook so that I hope he will never forget us, for I am sure we will never forget him.
Now then, I wonder just how many of Doc's babies are in the audience. I want you all to stand up and wave your hands, all of those that were delivered by Doc Yegerlehner. Everybody, wave your hands to Doc. There's another gentleman in the crowd that I want to introduce to you, which he needs no introduction. I want to present to you is Reverend Fields from Knox, I believe. Knox, Indiana? Reverend Fields, where are you? Stand up. He is Bob Fields with us. Oh, is Doc Kressler here? Where's Doc Kressler? Doc, stand up wherever you are. Doc. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that just about ends the program for the afternoon. We want to express our regrets to the Yegerlehners that they are leaving Kentland, but we know that Doc is going to a very fine school, and I do say that advisedly. Thank you. You're going to a very nice position, and we're very happy for you, Doc. And that will be the end of the program. The reception is at the back end of the building here. We have lots of good refreshments. And I'm going to take the Yegerlehners down there, and I want all of you people to follow me, and we'll go back to the reception table. Thank you so much for coming.